Hi. Well, after the success of the bassoon lamp, I've been given a clarinet to make into a table lamp. Now, it always seems a pity when you see an instrument that's going to be the end of its life to turn it into a lamp when it could be made into a playing instrument. However, this one doesn't play at the moment, so it obviously needs some real work on it. Plays a couple of notes. The person who bought it thought they'd got a bargain because it's made of wood, and these old instruments, a lot of them are made of wood. The composite material that's used nowadays wasn't available, and the other material used was a vulcanized rubber, which has a greenish look about it and a distinctive smell. So there were quite a few of these old wooden instruments about. So this could be made to work. It would need a good service, but even after you've done spent £100 or something on a service, you've still only got an instrument that's worth about £20. And the reason it's only worth £20 is because of its name. It doesn't have the right name. If the instrument's got a name like Buffet Crampon or Selmer, Yamaha, then it'll sell. But this one's got the name of, I'll try and show it, Cabart, just about shows. Here we are, this one's better. Cabart. Now, I hadn't heard of Cabart, so I looked them up and I found they were introduced in the 1950s. And indeed, this one has a number on it, 2051, which may indicate that it's a 1951 model. But if you look on the back of the model and see this simple thumb support with a bit of cork on it, guaranteed to give you a sore thumb after half an hour, you know that it's aimed at the student level. So it's not going to be a great instrument. Having a good look at it, the problem is it's not just the service, it's got cracks, and the bell has got a couple of cracks in it. They're hairline, and you can hardly see them and might not have any effect on the sound. But nonetheless, it's an undesirable feature, and I'll try and show that on the camera. When looking for cracks, the best thing to do is to look against the light down from the inside of the bell, and I'm trying my best to hold this steady, and you can see that thin black line. Well, that's the crack. Now, from the outside it hardly shows, so you want to make sure you're looking down the inside of the barrel. And there it's quite plain, it's got a crack. I did think about stripping it down and polishing it and making it look nice and shiny and so on, although it didn't look too bad at the moment from the question of being shiny. But I think I'll leave it on to show its original patina, so that it will at least look quite reasonable. And going back to buying instruments with the name, just because it's got the name on it doesn't necessarily mean it's a better playing instrument than one that doesn't have the right name. And if you look on eBay, there are hundreds of clarinets for sale, all with strange names and with prices from next to nothing up to whatever you want to pay. As a good example, I bought a soprano saxophone called an Arbiter. Now, I did some research. I wanted to have a go on one. I wasn't going to spend a lot of money. And I did some research and found the Arbiter was one of the first to be introduced from the Far East and had earned itself a good reputation for its sound quality. So I thought it was worth a risk, and I bought one for £150. When it arrived, it's immaculate, beautiful condition, and to my ear at least it sounded reasonable. But I have a relative who plays saxophone amongst other things, and he had a soprano sax and he was keen to try it out, brought his mouthpiece along, played a few scales, then a bit more, and then a bit more, and a bit more jazz, and then afterwards he said, "It makes you wonder why I spent £2,000 on this Yanagasawi when I could have got the same sort of sound for £150. So there you are. It all depends on the instrument. You play it, you like the sound, never mind the name, but don't get caught out. Now, to make the instrument into a lamp, there are only two places of concern. One is obviously the bass to fix into there, and the other one is going to be the lamp where the bulb goes. This one's got an unusual white mouthpiece. Strange one, I can't find much information about it. It's a Dearman Super 4-star, and whatever the plastic is, it's now gone very brittle and full of little tiny cracks. Whether I use that or not, I don't know. I might cut it in half and then I can put a thread in it and I'll see what happens. I bought a piece of cherry wood for the bass. I'm not sure it's a good choice. It tends to rip out at the end grain, but I'm hoping that just disappear when I do a lot of sanding on it. I have the lathe working in the opposite direction to normal, reverse direction, so that when I sand on it, the dust goes away from my face, although when I'm working on it I am using a face mask, of course. There's the end grain here, very, very rough at the moment, and I'm using quite coarse paper, 80 grit, and that doesn't seem to be shifting very much. It's going to be a long, slow job, I think, but at the end it should make quite a reasonable plinth. Well, I've turned up the bass, rather nice finish on it, almost like boxwood. I'm not quite sure whether I'm going to stain it or just lacquer it, but we'll have a test run first. I've turned up a conical piece to fit inside the bell, and the extended piece will go right up inside the clarinet, and it'll all be glued together. But at the moment I shall just glue that in place, and then once it's set overnight, I'll use that to hold it in the chuck while I turn the other side. At the moment it seems quite stable, so I'm not quite sure yet whether I shall need to weight it, put a lead weight or anything, but at the moment it seems okay. So when I've turned off the back and left a space for the wiring to go through, we'll see how it is. Okay, I've more or less finished the base. This has been glued in now. The drill obviously isn't going to be long enough to go through both, so I drilled it from both ends, but I had to make up this little D bit just to join the two ends together. Not much of a problem really. And on the underside I've bored a hole a little bit bigger and the cable will go in here, and I'll be able to get to it on the inside and feed it up through. Next job is to put the finish to this. I'm going to try an ordinary clear lacquer and see how that goes, rather than trying to stain it. It's a hard wood, this cherry, and it doesn't want to take spirit stains very well. It sort of just puddles up and then doesn't do very much. This is the barrel that fits on the last piece of the clarinet at the top end, and I've made a little brass piece again which will screw into the bulb holder. Little wooden plug glued in, painted black, should do the job, and 3 coats of lacquer on the base, giving a very nice finish, so I'm very happy with that. So it's just a question now of getting the cable in, threading it through, wiring up, and then finding a shade for it. It's quite easy to get the cable in. It just passes through the hole and up inside there. Not difficult to get it round the bend, and I've left plenty sticking out of the top, and then it'll pull back through afterwards. Not a problem. Well, there's a finished lamp. Not too happy about the lamp shade. It's just a bit taller than I needed, but it gives it a little bit too much height. Maybe if it came down a bit further it would look better. But very pleased with the base. The lacquer has brought the grain up nicely. Quite a nice little plinth. And that's it.